She loved animals and arts and crafts, seemed to get along well with other kids, and was generally well behaved in class. But at home, Jean Newmaker was overwhelmed by the level of dysfunction in Candace's behavior. going to die, and your mommy's going to die. It wasn't until almost 9 minutes into her rebirthing that Candace Newmaker first expressed her inability to get out of her makeshift womb. "Who's sitting on me?" she asked. "I can't do it. I can't do it." She began to cry, telling Watkins she couldn't breathe. "Whoever is pushing on my head, it's not helping," she said. "I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't breathe. It's too dark under here. Please quit pushing on my head. I can't do it. Someone's sitting on top of me." Candace continued to struggle for an hour longer, telling the 4 adults repeatedly that she couldn't breathe and expressing fears that she was going to die. At one point, Ponder told her that if that was what she wanted to do, she should do it. "Go ahead and die right now," Ponder said. For real, for real." For over 70 minutes, Candace Newmaker struggled as she was slowly smothered to death. Often taunted by Watkins and Ponder, who called her quitter and twerp for being unable to get out. She was restrained within her artificial womb, even after she vomited and excreted inside it. "Stay in there with the poop and vomit," Watkins told her. These are therapists. Eventually, Candace stopped struggling. Nearly 30 minutes after Candace uttered her last word, "no," Watkins decided to check on her. So, anyway, I hope that you liked the video. Tell